In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and have a happy Friday to everybody. Welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Our special guest tonight is Omar Kinnebrew. Omar Kinnebrew is a dedicated husband, proud father, and visionary CEO of Bespoke Couture Incorporated, a premier brand delivering impeccable crafted garments, shoes, and leather goods to clients nationwide. His creations worn by athletes, executives, influencers, and more have been celebrated on prominent television shows and featured in leading national publications. He has a decade of experience in the luxury industry and specializes in image enhancement and personal branding. An alumnus of North Carolina A&T University, Omar earned his undergraduate degree in business management and Spanish, where he was an active leader in student organizations, a university football player, and a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity Incorporated. Later, he pursued an MBA in marketing and strategic management from Mercer University, where he further honed his business acumen. Fueled by a passion for bespoke craftsmen, Omar began designing luxury accessories in 2014, soon evolving his focus to custom suits and shoes. Recognizing the demand for true bespoke offerings, he assembled top-tier master tailors and cobblers, launching the Bespoke Couture line in 2016. With each piece, Omar is committed to creating garments that empower his clients, allowing them to command presence without saying a word. Over the years, Bespoke Couture has become synonymous with style precision and a unique client experience. Under Omar's guidance, the company has collaborated with iconic brands like Facebook, Toyota, and MasterCard, enhancing campaigns with bespoke elegance. His work has been featured in BET, Atlanta News First, Modern Luxury Magazine, and the Atlanta Business Journal, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the show Mr. Omar Kinnebrew. Hello, sir.
Brother King, how are you doing today? And thank you
I'm,
so very much for having me.
I'm so excellent. Thank you for being here. Are there any other things you'd like to add before we get into the show?
I would like to add GQ to the list of major publications. So we had an opportunity at the beginning of this year to be featured in British GQ, where they were highlighting various bespoke ateliers or various companies or brands in the realm of men and women's handcrafted fashion.
Oh, wow. Congratulations to you. Look at you. You're not just national, you're international. Wow. That's really great. But as you think about that, I mean, did you ever think that you would be at this point?
No, not in the slightest. And look, I tell folks all the time when I have a conversation about my journey, I literally fell into entrepreneurship. My goal as I was matriculating through school and getting older and gaining experience was to go, to whatever corporation and be a high-ranking executive following in the footsteps of my father, but through certain ideas, through certain layoffs and certain changes in life, I ended up finding myself being very similar to a book that's out, A Reluctant Entrepreneur. So it's worked out, but it was never planned.
Oh, wow. So let's get into more of this entrepreneurial vision and leadership of yours, because that sounds like you're about to give us some real lessons here about life. Can you tell us what inspired your entrepreneurial journey, and what was your first major venture?
Yeah. So for me, in terms of, I guess, really pursuing, this entrepreneurial journey, it was a twofold push. So I think the biggest thing was understanding and realizing that it could be a thing, right? And so stick with me, Charles, and everybody else. So by that, I mean, I never planned on being an entrepreneur. I never sought out to be an entrepreneur. To me, somebody who either started their own company or business, purchased or acquired a company or business, it was so far beyond my initial thinking and realm of possibility or capability that it just wasn't on my radar. And so when I saw that it could be something, and I started putting a few ideas together, that was one push, where I saw that, okay, what I'm doing is something that could be valuable to a consumer base if it's done the right way, at the right price point, with the right level of service. So that was one. That was the general push. The secondary push after I became an entrepreneur, or potentially became an entrepreneur, was my first child. So when I transitioned from just having a side hustle, right, creating accessories, to then starting a custom clothing brand, and then ended up getting laid off, my son was 6 months old. And so there's nothing more powerful, there's nothing more motivating than you looking internally and saying, hey, if I don't produce, if I don't achieve, if I'm not successful, my child doesn't eat. So without going through too long of a story, just yet, those were two initial factors that pushed me really out to go and work hard within this entrepreneurial journey.
Wow. So how did you develop the mindset necessary for long-term business growth?
I would say a little bit of it was ingrained, a little bit of it was learned. And so what I mean by that is, and let me take a step back, because you have one, it's a phenomenal question that leads to a lot of great points when folks are wanting to get out there. We're in a society now where people want immediate wins, they want immediate funds, all of those quick engagements. But entrepreneurship takes grit, it takes grind, it takes persistence, it takes getting your butt kicked and getting back up and then getting it kicked again. So when I say it was ingrained and then learned or earned, I grew up playing sports. And so playing sports, I was never the biggest kid out there, and football was my sport. And so in order for me to be somewhat decent on the football field, I had to bust my butt, not only right in training, right, whether it be weight room, whether it be additional drills. If you want to achieve and you see, hey, the goal is right there, how do I get to that goal? It's by busting your butt to be better than everybody else. You can't be taught motivation, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody can teach you how to desire something. You either want it or you don't. So luckily, through just the upbringing of my parents and how they pursued life, right? Because how you do something is how you're going to do everything. And like I tell my kids, I don't care how minor it is, you either are going to give it 100% or you won't. And if you start slacking on one thing, you start slacking on everything. So growing up, it was you give everything your all, or per my dad, you give everything 110%, right? So you go out there and you grind. So the only way I knew how to achieve and be successful or to get something done was to give it my all. And so that was an easy, right? Like an easy correlation to how I pursued the entrepreneurial journey. But then another aspect of it, the learned aspect, was, oh, I see how these other business owners, how these other entrepreneurs are moving in either an industry, in the world, right? And for our community, Charles, and I'm sure you and the audience can attest to this, we don't get the education on borrowing millions of dollars to go make millions of dollars.
True.
We're not taught the utilization of capital. We're not taught the acquisition of assets. We're not taught how to be owners and bosses, to have others take a vision, move it forward for you, for success and growth and all those things. And so when I transitioned out of the corporate world into a world of entrepreneurship, it was as if the blinders came off, or even better, it was as if the old Wizard of Oz, when it starts out in black and white and then it goes into Technicolor. That's how it felt. Because being in corporate America, I was, per what I'm sure what our institutions want, right? I was a cog that had learned how to do certain things so that I can then go into the world and do X, Y, Z to grow the GDP per my efforts. But we're not taught to go be owners and entrepreneurs. And so when I got out of corporate and got into this world of entrepreneurship and started, connecting and sitting at the table with other owners and other entrepreneurs, it's just so much that I learned in a very short period of time that I'm continuing to learn that I never would have had that exposure if I was still in corporate, right? So there's it's the earned and then it's the ingrained, to answer your question.
So something. I mean, you hit quite a few things that I think would be really, really insightful. For our audience.
Yeah.
What are some tips that you can give to some people that are actually pretty much that may be in that same situation as you? That maybe some things maybe that they like to do, but something like kind of like just falls their way. And how do they recognize that?
So, and let me make sure I understand the question. Are you asking, how do they transition from, corporate or day job to entrepreneurship, or how do they take advantage of opportunities that present themselves? Or is it both?
Both.
Okay. So the first thing I'll say, if you are someone who is considering, taking that leap from corporate, from the 9 to 5 to then dive into entrepreneurship, one, I would hope that you're building it up on the side, because my thing is you always want to test, and make sure that the idea, the concept is always validated before you take that leap. And so we call that, an educated risk, right? You always want to, you don't just want to jump out there. But with that, so you want to take your time in vetting out the opportunity and taking that leap. You also want to make sure that you're covered if things don't go well. By that, I mean, let's say you leave your corporate role. It's a very consistent paycheck. You know what you're going to get based on, whatever parameters are set. You go on the road to entrepreneurship, you eat what you kill. So you earn based on your performance. If for any reason your business venture fails, are you still okay for X amount of period of time? Now, that runway is going to be different for everybody. Some people may need, or some people may give themselves 3 months of, we'll call it downtime. It could be failure to some, it could be a downtime to others. Some may have 6 months, some may have 12 months. You have to look at your resources to say, if this doesn't work out, right? Or if I'm just struggling through to build it up, can I survive over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months and be okay? Because a lot of times, Charles, it takes just that. So I was fortunate to where I was building my business up on the side, right, while I was working in corporate America, and I was able to have it validated by having a consumer base that was willing to give me money for my product or service, which is another point of mine. It's a hobby until you have somebody that you don't know that willingly gives you money for your product or service. Family and friends do not count, right? Family and friends should be utilized to beta test, or validate an idea, or to help improve on iterations of a product. They should be there to help you kind of refine the offering and then get out there to the public, because your friends and family are a support system. They're there to support you. They're not there to always tell you the truth, right? So you don't have a business until somebody you don't know is paying for it. But you want to make an educated jump. And sometimes it does take a risk, but make sure it makes sense. Numbers do not lie, right? If you're able to lay out a pro forma or a projection of what this business can make, and there's a whole nother conversation when it comes to your financials, the balance sheet, the P&L, et cetera. So talk to the right individuals that can help you lay that out, but it needs to make sense. You need to understand your potential market and consumer base. You need to understand the cost to not only get into the business, but then run the business, because there's going to be different barriers of entry to every industry or sector and every business. So for my business in the realm of bespoke tailoring or custom clothing, it is extremely easy to get in. It is difficult, however, to sustain and maintain and grow the business because of the way that the industry and the businesses operate. That's another conversation. All right. So make sure it's vetted out, well thought out, identify numbers that make sense, and do not unnecessarily take out money. By that I mean there are a lot of folks with dreams of opening flashy businesses. By that I mean restaurant, lounges, bars, whatever else that sound and look really, really good if they work out, but they may be capital intensive to start. And so somebody may come to the local bank and they may request a lot of funds and they may get them, or they may take their savings and put a lot of those funds into it, and then they're lost, right? So, these moves need to be calculated. They need to be well thought out. You take your vision and you make sure that there is a clear path to achieving that objective, but ensuring that there is a contingency plan if the dream does not come to fruition in the way that you're looking for, in the amount of time that you're looking for. And obviously, I can keep going, about that, but there's a lot with that question.
So, what core values drive your business decisions today?
So, for me, as an extension of Bespoketure, being very client-centric is going to be the first one. And by that, I mean, we do absolutely everything we can to take care of our clients, because one, you're investing a considerable amount of money in either garments, shoes, or leather goods, but you're also investing in your appearance, which can then affect, some results in life, right? Or situations in life. So if we set somebody up and they look amazing in the garments that we provide for them, and it enhances their confidence, they might now be able to go in for that raise or promotion at work. They might have the confidence to pursue, that individual that they've been eyeing, and now they may have a potential partner, fiance, etc. Or just feeling better in life in general. And so, although the customer is not always right, we are very client centric in making sure we do everything we can to take care of our clients, because as soon as you spend a hard earned dollar with Bespoketure, you're part of our family. So we give you the warm embrace, we bring you in, and we take it from there. So that client centric approach is always going to be top of the list. And after that, Charles, I would say transparency. So I operate in an industry that most folks aren't familiar with,
Right.
and you can very easily the best way to put it is maybe misconstrue the fabrics, the construction, the whole nine. Prices and the cost and the value, like they're all over the place when it comes to this industry. And so what we aim to do is educate our clients so that they know exactly what they're investing in. They know how it's made, what they can expect moving forward when it comes to the longevity or lifespan of the piece. They know how it will fit on them. And then we're always here, for them after the fact. So those are two major things: transparency, being client centric, and just you have to do good business, and that is a very broad statement, or I'm sorry, it's a very simple statement that covers a broad scenario of situations. And a lot of that just comes down to the type of person that people are, and if you have the right values, the right approach, you don't want to just get over on people, because it's not just about the dollar. It's about putting out a product or service that is worth something. And that value goes a long way. So we conduct ourselves in, the highest level of integrity, so that regardless of what you purchase from Bespoketure, regardless of who you connect with, what the experience is on that particular day, or the garments or shoes you're getting, you'll say, you know what, I would go back to them, or I would refer somebody to go to them.
Wow. Now, I got to say, I think about when we first connected on LinkedIn.
Yes, sir.
And I was watching, as you would advertise the different suits, the shoes, how you have that little small, little 30-second commercial, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, sir.
And I'm like, well, who in the hell is this? And so I'm seeing it over and over and over again. And there's always these changes and so forth. Can you tell us who is the designer that designs all of this high class fashion that you have?
So it's my clothiers and I. So essentially, or let me not take all the credit, right? So we take a client's vision and we bring that to life. And by that I mean, we can have a client that walks in and says, Omar, or any one of my clothiers, this is what I want. And we may ask them questions, just like this, or do you want this change, this different, et cetera? No, I want it just like this. Hey, let's do it. And then it's up to us to make them look just as amazing as that photo does in the garments we craft for them, right? Regardless of body structure, fit, et cetera. But we also have sometimes where a client comes in and says, Omar, I need to go to this event. I don't know what I need to wear, but I need to show up like this. And then we work with them to identify the right fabrics, the right cut, so that they can show up and own the room. Because we want our clients to exude confidence, exude power. And that's what bespoke garments and shoes will do for you, because you stand out, and you stand above without saying a word. People see you come in and, ooh, that's a clean brother right there. Right? And then people, they come to you, start drawing people towards you. So, I don't even call myself a designer. I call myself, aside from the founder or the CEO of the company, I call myself a bespoke clothier. I'm just here to facilitate a vision, and I put an amazing team together of master tailors, master cobblers, other artisans that can manipulate patterns, manipulate fabrics, manipulate, etc., to put together these masterful pieces.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, you guys are doing some really good work, because the way you advertise it is definitely eye catching. I can say that.
I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
So, what distinguishes your leadership style within competitive industries?
So, our industry is very unique in that everything is held really close to the chest, or close to the vest, close to the chest. Almost as if there's some sort of secret sauce, to a brand, a company, a clothier that provides this service and offering. And it's not the case. And so my style over the years has been one of collaboration, one of teaching or education, and one of empowerment. And by that I mean, so you'll come across other custom clothing brands, where a lot of times there's going to be a solopreneur mentality, where it's all about maybe just an owner or owner and a few people, and it's all about like how he can just get money, how he or she can do that in XYZ, and you just have people that you have team members that is working as maybe cogs within the system of that business. So within bespokature, I don't feel comfortable if my clothiers don't know as much as me, because you can't be as empowered, you can't have the same drive, you can't service the client the same way if you don't have that knowledge base, and if you don't feel as confident in knowing that you know what you need to know to achieve the goal of taking care of that individual. So always want to make sure that there's enough education out there. And this is not, by any stretch of imagination, this is not an industry or a field where you can just get something that's good, right? We are continuing to educate ourselves, continuing to learn, because there's such a mixture of science and art that delivers this mastery of bespoke garments that a lot of people just don't know about. So we have to know so much more than not just the layperson, but other folks within this industry, so that we can impart that knowledge upon our clients so that they can make an informed decision on their investment. So not only that, on the education side, but I want to make sure that I empower my team to do things that can enhance the brand, right? So I don't need to micromanage and look over your shoulder at all hours of the day, every day. I may throw some suggestions out there. I may pose some questions, right? And everything will be towards, how can we move the brand forward? How can you build yourself so that you are even stronger within your role within the company? And I'm always available, for questions, for conversations. I'm always available to dive in if there's a situation where, hey, something's going wrong and we need your help. Got it. Let's go. I'm there. So I always try to make sure that, build in the right way. I haven't always hired the right people, and that's a part of that learning as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of things that you think you need or think you need to do, and you find out that it's not the right path or the right move. Again, that's a whole nother conversation. But making sure that my team have the right tools so that they can move forward and that they can take steps that enhance their path in life or enhance the prominence of the company.
So, how do you assess the impact of entrepreneurship within Black communities?
How do I? All right, give it to me one more time.
How do you assess the impact of entrepreneurship within Black communities?
So I can primarily speak to the Black entrepreneur culture in Atlanta because that's what I'm most familiar with. I haven't been here for 16 years. And for me, I would assess it in, and you know what? Let me ask you this: when you ask how I assess it, is it my assessment of how well or how poorly maybe we're doing in the Black community as entrepreneurs, or are we looking at how I rank certain business or industries in the Black community? Let me. I just want to make sure I understand specifically what you mean by that.
No. And so when we're talking about the impact, okay, the impact of entrepreneurship, especially in the Black community.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What we're, we just in knowing, like, let's just say, like, we know where bespoketure is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so within your standing in the Black community, where you have, your niche, and you may have, there's like other companies, there may be like, maybe, I'm going to say like maybe 5 companies that can stand alone, including yours when it comes to this industry, right? So just from your industry compared to other industries where you see Black entrepreneurship, what is the impact? I mean, because I'm sure that as far as you can see, especially here in Atlanta, because we're both here, but here in Atlanta, I mean, people speak highly of Black entrepreneurs, but the impact on the Black community is horrendous.
Yeah. And so, okay, now I got it. Thank you for that. And I think I was missing the impact piece when you initially posed the question. But you started off with a notion, similar to my own, where Atlanta is the show me city, where everybody wants to show up looking good. Everybody wants to show how well they're doing. Everybody wants to showcase that they're doing something. And so, you made a great point where, yes, there are Black businesses. Yes, the level of Black entrepreneurs is increasing in the numbers, right? But there's not a lot of impact because and there's nothing wrong with a solopreneur venture or approach, but a lot of times it's, us, right? Or me, and not giving to somebody else, building up somebody else, providing a job for somebody else. And not everybody can do that, right? But with there being so many entrepreneurial ventures and so many entrepreneurs and business owners in Atlanta, it is a dismal, unfortunately, impact to the community. There are, however, and it's the 20/80 rule, right? That Pareto principle. There are some major Black-owned firms or businesses or entrepreneurs that are doing a tremendous amount of good for the communities. Where they have firms that are in, the millions or billions of dollars, and they're turning back and saying, okay, how can I do my part, right? Let me bring you up here. Let me empower you this way. Let me give back to you in this manner. Let me, give to this community. So you do see that, but I would say overall, it is abysmal to see how much could be done, but isn't, because it's, when a lot of people, and you see this, and there's nothing wrong with it, a lot of people will see entrepreneurship, hey, how can I just make a lot of money and look good? And this is somebody
you can just say it, Omar.
You're talking about somebody that owns a custom suiting company, right? So we make money and we look good every day, right? So no, but it's something that I hadn't really thought about, intently before. But when you bring it up, you're like, man, oosh. And it's not a scenario that would improve really that much, because it is very easy to become a CEO or entrepreneur, right? You can just create an LLC and, hey, I'm the owner, I'm the founder. And social media, unfortunately, is messing us all up. See a lot of folks going out there on their own, and they may not have the proper guidance. And so now they're in the community, they're a business owner, they're marketed as a business owner, and there's nothing coming from them, right?
I think this on your plate. I want to put this on your plate.
Okay.
And just I want you to see it first before you give me an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first I'm going to give you some facts. Atlanta, I think one of the top 2 or 3 larger Black urban metropolitan cities, is the most gentrified in this country. Think about that. You have an enormous amount of Black entrepreneurship, but nobody in Atlanta really owns or run Atlanta that's Black. Now, tell me about that impact.
Oh, that, my friend. Do we need to go back to redlining?
But see, there's not redlining, not here, not yet, because they're getting there because of the gentrification. They're getting there. They're not there yet. So pretty much it's the strategy that's taken place.
Yeah.
That's taken the major strong traditional Black communities, and they have gentrified them. And let's go with the latest one over in Southwest Atlanta, which is the newest part of the Beltline that has been built up. Then we have East Atlanta, which was done first, and is spreading back towards the Beltline. Then you have what's that? I think is it Southeast or some other part of Atlanta? How Atlanta's been like the main pockets have been gentrified. But we have all of this major entrepreneurship and Black business ownership, but nobody has taken the responsibility to take hold and control of those communities to keep that from happening.
So it's a couple things, so you have one, or they could have their sights on something else, right? They could also be missing the opportunity to empower those communities, right? Where generations of our people have been and have thrived, and maybe now, so a lot of times, so when it comes to a lot of the gentrification, how do you get people out of their homes, right? A lot of times they're elderly or the people that want to take a quick buck to get out of there. If we get in those communities and we educate them on how they can utilize the value of those homes to empower themselves through refinancing, through borrowing, based on and then again getting into like HELOCs and things like that, if it's there, or partnering with organizations. So let's say there's 87-year-old Miss May, and either her note is getting ready to be due. Let's say they raise taxes. Let's say she can't, she doesn't have enough to pay for a mortgage, right? Somebody can swoop in, save her, empower, refinance the home. There's going to be money in there based on the community. Or let's say Miss May, that house has been paid off for the last 20-something years, right? And it was purchased for $67,000, and now the house is worth $500,000, and you have somebody coming to offer her $150,000 to get out of there because they know the game. And a lot of times there could be the quick money grab versus understanding, Ms. May, you may not understand how much equity is in this home right now. You don't have to move because they're giving you X amount of dollars. What if you take this, you refinance and borrow against the home, and she works for somebody to now take those funds and invest in the house next door where maybe they're struggling to pay their mortgage, And now they can become the landlord for their neighbor who doesn't get kicked out, right? But now the value can remain in that community without them having to leave or be pushed out by folks. Because think about it, right? They're not coming in with bulldozers and kicking people out. They're saying, hey, we want to buy this for X amount.
Yeah, well, they do that because they don't raise the taxes and the people can't afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so, or we have those situations, right? Where somebody's buying it, where you could raise taxes and get kicked out. Or a lot of times you have folks that are literally, they call them bird dogs, right? So you have real estate investors that hire folks to go knock on doors and entice people to sell their homes before they even know it's worthwhile to list it. And they get them out of there, and all of a sudden the whole community is regentrified and say, what the heck happened? And we're blaming somebody else, where we just may not, as a community, as a culture, we may just not have had that knowledge to say, oh, we don't understand the value we're sitting on right now. And that's what happens a lot of times, because you have folks that are coming in to swoop, right, versus educate and empower, uplift. So if we took a lot of those entrepreneurs that have the capability in our community to turn around and say, hey, let's help them keep their homes, right? Whether it's a buy the block back initiative, whether it's a reinvestment initiative, like a whole.
We're in the South, so that's not going to happen.
Oh no, it may not. I'm saying what could happen.
But, because that's a great thing that you're talking about. But that's Midwest and Northeast.
Until it gets down here, right? And a lot of times it gets down here and it's too late. Because now, one good thing is that there are a lot more young entrepreneurs that are hip to the game of the financial strategies of wealth, of gaining wealth, of utilizing funds from there, like, tax strategies, the whole nine, versus, folks in our generation beyond, and even more so, it was work, get money, raise a family, pass away.
So let me I want to be clear. I want to make a disclosure here. When I asked this question, I did not have the intent for us to run down this street. I did not. And so I want to just say, I want you to forgive me for that, because when I was just asking, it's just that the impact is so astronomical, and I've just been writing so many different things about it. And so I want you to forgive me, for that, because we went running way down the street, and I didn't want us to do that. So please forgive me for that.
Look, not a problem at all. And I should have given you the disclaimer before we started. You'll probably have to just time me out because you see, I can just talk. Okay. My wife, she shuts me down all the time. Like, okay, you've given me enough words for the day. Please go talk to your kids, So I can talk a lot, obviously. And I have a thought or perception about most things. And I'm happy to talk about it. So it didn't mean to get too far off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. Let's transition over to the work you do in real estate and economic empowerment. What drew you into the real estate world, and what was your first breakthrough?
What drew me into real estate was not just money. It was the opportunity of, oh, I can do this too. And by that, I mean, there are a lot of folks in the real estate game at various levels, from investors, brokers, developers, flippers, the whole nine. And that was never a pursuit of mine. But I did learn, luckily, when I got out of college, luckily I took the path of, purchasing a condo at an early age, right? So it was my first property, not as an investment, as, just as my, as an owner-occupied property. And from there, I said, oh, okay, I should probably own versus rent, right? Because again, granted, the levels may shift, right? Renting may be more expensive than mortgages, right? We know how the economy works. But at that point in time, I was in Buckhead with a pretty low mortgage. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I see how that works. If you have the funds to put down, like, okay, sounds good. And then a couple of years later, I was doing something. Oh, I was trying to get heavy into stocks, and trying to do some trading. And I was deciding, hey, am I going to be a day trader on the side? Should I short stocks on the side? Looking at the returns, and I started, reading books, listening to podcasts, and more and more you'd hear about the average returns when dealing with real estate versus the stock market, right? And what I realized, Charles, is it's very easy to get into stocks, right? You can go to Robinhood and you can invest pennies on the dollar. You own a part of this company. Fantastic. What do you get back from that? Jack shit, right? Most of the times, unless you're investing enough to get a true return over a longer period of time, nothing. But if you understand real estate and you're able to muster up the courage to take the risk, because it's very scary doing your first deal, right? You're like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna give this money here and hopefully this works out, etc. Whether it's a buy and hold or a flip or what have you. And then you take the steps and you realize, well, it wasn't that difficult. And you say, oh, this is why and how people do this all the time. This is why they get wealthy doing this, how they gain power, position, favor, etc., by dabbling or playing in the real estate game. I learned very quickly that we can do it too. It just takes dipping your toe in and having not only the courage, but running the numbers and making sure that it makes sense in terms of your evaluation, return, etc. I'm still trying to push my brothers into investing in real estate, so we'll see how that plays out. I think I missed it. It was a 2-part question, right?
Yes. And what was your first breakthrough?
What was the first question?
The first part was what drew you into real estate.
See what happens? I just start talking and I'm all over the place. Yeah, so the money and opportunity were what drew me to it, and then the breakthrough was understanding that we can do it too.
What does real estate represent to you when it comes to generational wealth?
Opportunity. So one thing that I learned and understood at a very earlier than I am now. I'm 40. So we'll say
a decade. I remember when I was 40.
Don't say it like that. Okay, my kids call me old all the time. All right. Apparently 40. I should be in a wheelchair according to my daughter. Daddy, you're 40, right? I said, yes, sir. I'm 40. Oh, you're old. But yeah, so when it comes to I lost again. All right. So what does real estate mean to me when it comes to wealth building? Got it. So
represent when it comes to generational wealth.
Yeah, generational wealth. So here's the beauty of real estate, right? Or land. There's only so much land that can be divided, purchased, used, built upon, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have that land, right? Now, you can build a property on it. There could be a fire, etc. But once you have that land, that is yours. You can build upon that, and you can lay it out for farmland. You can have a crop. You can reap the reward or reap the yield. You can build up. You can have a home which provides coverage, safety, solace for a family. You can rent it out to provide income, for yourself or others. You can, it can be zoned for commercial, and now you're a landlord, lease out that way. You can now take that land, you can utilize the value of that land, right, to borrow more capital to get more land and continue building. So as a wealth builder across the nation, land or real estate is the number one factor, or the number one, piece, or the number one thing that wealthy individuals have or have built their wealth with. Mm-hmm. And that is major, because as a community, we have very little of it. So it's important to me to try to capture, obtain, but also educate my kids about it, educate others about it. And, that was on the investing side. And now I get to trade commercial assets so that we can put more money back into our household. And so, there's a few ways you can do it, but man, land or real estate overall is extremely vital to building up wealth.
Mm. How do you incorporate community empowerment into your real estate projects?
So I'll be honest, I do more community engagement with bespoketure versus the real estate side. Yeah. And the reason being is because my wife, as a residential broker, she does a great deal of community engagement, impact, and empowerment on her real estate side. So what I'll do is, when she has initiatives, I then partner with her to build, or bespoketure or Omar will have, I'll have my own community engagement initiatives, et cetera, and go that way. So, I wouldn't even say that I'm doing it through the real estate side. For me, it's on the personal / bespoketure side that I do a majority of the community engagement and empowerment.
Can you share a property deal that challenged your strategy or values?
It could be a lot, or a lot of them, and by that I mean, so, and I'll reference it on the broker side, right? Not the investor side. Because let's see, well, I'll do broker one, I'll do investor one. On the broker side, there's always the internal conflict of more commission, right, over potentially better deal for a client. Now, I'm saying that almost in jest, like almost tongue in cheek, like it happened, because for me, got to take care of the client. The same way I operate the bespoke clothing business, same way I operate in real estate on the broker side, got to take care of the clients. We have to get a deal done that makes sense for them, is favorable to them. In the same way, in the rest of my life, if you take care of people, if you do things well, you will be fairly rewarded, compensated, etc. But oftentimes, right, and I'll just kind of say this in general, you could be put in a situation where, right, there's money taken out of your pocket for the good of the client. And what you have to consider is that relationship, is that project or deal worth it? Mm. So whether it's giving up partial or all commission for a deal to get done, right? Whether it's giving certain things, you're already giving your time, you're working your butt off, you're negotiating, you're showing, you're doing X, Y, Z, are you getting the deal done so that your client can achieve their vision? And that's just on the commercial side. My wife, her transactions will have probably a greater level of, we'll say, a greater level of emotion or personal aspect to it, because it's residential real estate. There's a lot of numbers and figures in mind, but people still, there's emotions and egos at play on smaller deals. So I'll say that. But that could be a strain or a contentious internal battle of, do I fight so I get more money, or do I fight and get this done so that my client can go out, establish their business, or get their secondary or tertiary space and move forward and prosper? And now we have a great relationship, right? On the investment side, that you said that it has tested strategy and what?
That challenged your strategy or values.
Okay, yeah. So we talk about values on the broker side. So on the investor side, so as an owner, we'll say my building, it tested me and tested my strategy as a business owner and investor, because the acquisition of the 5,500 square foot building was going to be dual purpose or multi-purpose, and it tested the strategy. One, the business model, because Bespokature was expanding, and it only made sense to invest in a piece of property that could house the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we felt, excuse me, at the same time, there was extra space so that we could incorporate either a lease model or an event model.
Whoa.
What happened was everything sounded really good. You can make the numbers look really attractive, and things sound really, really good. But the ego was stronger than the valuation.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was the strategy was there, and if properly vetted, the numbers would have told a story to properly navigate. The ego, however, somehow overtook, and there were now inflations.
That's common.
In the pro forma, and then all of a sudden, the strategy that made so much sense, right? Mm-hmm. Now that model was no longer coming to fruition. And there's a big story, behind all of that. But just long story short, yeah. So the largest building I personally acquired didn't work out, and so now the strategy changes, and we're going to lease it out, and then make a move from there. So there's always pivoting. It's just knowing when to pivot and what direction to pivot in. To go ahead and lick your wounds and take your licks and keep moving forward.
How does systemic inequality show up in real estate today?
Oof. Money, and opportunity. Money, and opportunity. So the very, very, very first thing that should come to mind, when you even talk about our community in relation to real estate or in relation to small businesses, access to capital, financial education, access to capital, and then the execution of deals. A lot of times we may not know how to get the money. And let me say this, right? When it comes to real estate and large deals, smart players don't play with their own money. Okay?
No.
You just don't do it.
No.
Right? And so we don't understand how that works. Right? Mm-hmm. Look at our accounts. I don't have this. I don't know how I can get that. And it doesn't happen. We don't know how to have conversations with the right people to even give us the education to then approach to then move forward with the deal. We might get cut out of certain opportunities. I talked about the redlining before. What about scenarios where we may want to open up businesses in now these up and coming regentrified areas, but The bank said, financials are good. The city doesn't want this right here, right? Because there are certain ordinances, right? There's certain zoning. You still have to get approval, right? From just getting to that point, it's on the business side, on the personal real estate side. Gotta get money from the bank, right? What if the bank says, "Oh, you have enough money to put down, but we don't feel as though you have enough reoccurring income to service the debt for XYZ." And you can fight them, but they can still say, "No, we need more." Right? We may not know that, hey, we can partner with other folks. We can have syndication deals and approaches to where now we're not going to buy one home. We're going to buy an apartment complex, or we're going to buy a community. We're going to buy a block of homes. We don't have that education. So the education piece is fundamental and it's lacking. The access to capital is still there. Now, granted, there's a great push whether it's just lip service and or whether it's actually being done. There's a large push in Atlanta to connect, right, and to minimize those gaps of folks that need funds to do great things, people that have funds, right, and to connect those people, pieces, and players. But that's the biggest thing. And I'll be honest, Charles. I know you mentioned the fact previously about the level of integration or not integration, but
gentrification.
But Atlanta is still a Black Mecca, right? But where is our ownership stake? Where are we showing up to say this is truly ours? It's not happening. And so hopefully we can get there. If more of these conversations are happening, there's more pathways that are carved out to help us get there. Unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you know it. And sometimes it might be too late when we know.
Right. Now, no, you're absolutely right about that. But, again, this is where, we just have to critically think and be mindful.
Yeah.
And so, I think we all have great intentions. And again, this is by no means this is no means saying that, business is just bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm just simply putting this point out is that a lot of us that come from a lot of these areas, okay, born, raised, and bred, but refuse to, once you feel like you got a leg up, that you have to reach back. Hey, people do what they want to do, but I think a lot of us that think from that moral perspective, that's just where a lot of people think, and that's just one of the things that I just think of, and I don't do that to say, let me show somebody up. No, when we talk about this, we're talking about what we can do to make communities better, and that's the whole premise. We got to do something to make it better.
And there is a lot of that going on. I know we may have talked about a lot of the disparities, inequalities, but there's still a lot of good going on. There's a lot of good taking place. There's a lot of good people doing good things. I think the fact is it's so prevalent, how large, right, whether the wealth gap is, opportunity gap, et cetera, that it feels as though that we're not making the type of progress that is truly, I guess, quantifiably successful. But these things are happening. There's more conversations and more opportunities, so it's going to take time. But I tell you what, the beauty about our communities and our people, Charles, is we don't give up.
No,
we will find it. We will find a way.
We got it right here.
Yeah,
right here.
The path may be longer because, again, the shortcuts aren't carved out for us, or they're unknown. We will find a way to get to that finish line.
Yes, sir. Now let's transition over to your community engagement and advocacy. This is now actually, in reading your bio, again, this is one of the things I think about your bio that's so impressive, because I think sometimes, with a lot of people, it's kind of like hard, to to engage with people, especially in just in underserved communities or just disparaged communities. It's just difficult, but we have some people that's just a mission and they just do it, but this is one of the things that I thought was so impressive about your resume, you know and I just want to know, can you tell us, why is community engagement central to your professional and personal mission?
It's very simple. They need to see us, right? So, and I'm referring specifically to our black and brown young prince and princesses out there. They need to see us doing well and doing good, so that they know what's possible. And so, because I was able to see that growing up and various forms and facets, it's something that I try to impart and instill or encourage others to do as well.
What organizations or movements are you most connected to?
So these days, well, I'll give you like my track record over the years to just kind of show how time has shifted as it relates to the time I've been able to give, and how they would say you're going to give either your time, your talent, or your treasure, right? And I say, as long as you're giving one of the three, good for you. So the reason I bring that up is because years and years and years ago, I used to be a roofing supervisor for Habitat for Humanity. So I would go out there on Saturday, and I loved it. You want to talk about great work that is fulfilling, but you see an immediate impact? I encourage everybody, go out there and dive into a project, one of the 7-day builds for Habitat for Humanity. I mean, it is amazing. And then if you haven't done it before, go to day 7 to see the dedication of the homes. And then like right there, you see why you're doing what you're doing and how it helps to house a deserving and hardworking family. But so I bring all that up to say, before I had kids, I could dedicate 8 hours on Saturdays, a few times a month, get out there. And I like day 1 and 2s where I could build the roof and show others how to put the roof together. I also used to be a big for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Atlanta before I had kids, right? So those were times in which I could like truly dig in and like get out there and do things. Now I give back through either my talent or my treasure. So for instance, for Big Brothers Big Sisters, so because I cannot really dedicate the necessary time to be a big, because I have 2 young kids, I sponsor certain events like the fashion play, or give to them on a regular basis, so I can still provide in that manner. But now we focus on like a deeper community impact or closer to home. And by that, I mean, so our shop is in Hayville. We partner with Love Beyond Walls, where we provide them not only with the financial contribution on a monthly basis, but we also provide them with garments and shoes for those individuals that are getting to integrate or reintegrate back into the workforce. With us being a student company, we either have pieces we can give, or we encourage our clients to donate pieces, and so that we can in turn donate it to Love Beyond Walls. Not only that, work with other organizations like the Veritas schools, still giving back to Big Brothers Big Sisters, still giving back to Habitat for Humanity, but then also going into schools like individually. So I'm often asked to come in and speak with students, and I say, let's do it. So whether it's the Tri-City schools here, which we also donate garments to for the prom season, because there are a lot of undeserving young men or women that may not have pieces for the prom. So we're able to gift them pieces for the prom. But not only that, we will have students come over to the shop, or I will go to the schools and have a conversation about what it means to be a Black entrepreneur, right? What that journey looks like, what entrepreneurship looks like, what it means to be a responsible steward in the community. We also work with a wonderful organization, Youth to Men, where they take young men from 9th grade to 12th grade, and they put them on the course of understanding how to be a better, upstanding, outstanding gentleman in the community through courses, activity, civic engagement, etc. And so we give back to them monetarily. We also gift jackets or suits so that they can have suits for the end of the year. So think about a senior who may not normally be able to get a very, very nice custom suit as a high schooler coming out, going into college, and being ready for their organizations, their interviews, their internships, etc. Or speaking to them about what it means to start, run, and grow a business. So, again, we get an opportunity to just, again, really dig in. But anytime there is something asked of me, if I have time to do it, if I have the funds to do it, I'm always ready to dive in and give back. Or, if somebody say, "Hey, Omar, can my son call you? Right? Can my daughter call you? Tell them to hit me up. Let's have a conversation." Because a lot of times, we may not get that access. We may not get those opportunities. And so if I'm somebody that can provide some level of insight, some level of inspiration or motivation, then I'm happy to do so. I'm sure most of the time I just talk to ear off because you see I can talk a lot. But
no, look, we're not worried about this. This is my platform, so you don't have to worry about that.
But yeah, so those are some of the ways that we're able to give back, and that's just me. My wife, she has a whole a completely different subsector of civic engagement that she's involved in through her real estate business. Whether she's doing it on her own, whether she's partnering with others. So we try to give back because we're very cognizant about what we've gotten over the decades, right, of our life. Folks that have poured into us and will continue pouring into us. And then we know how imperative it is to then turn around and give back however we can.
Well, see, again, you guys are hitting it from two sides, and I think that that's really excellent. And that deserves to be commended. How do you use your platform to elevate others?
So a lot of times it's, maybe putting somebody out there just in front of the right folks, right? So I'm fortunate that through my business, we have a platform with a significant enough following. And so if there's ever an opportunity to put somebody forward, and I'll be honest, it's not all the time, right? It's not often, but a lot of times we come across somebody that may need something and we can put it in front of either a professional world through LinkedIn, or we can put it through a more relational set of circles through Facebook, or business or personal business through Instagram, and put them out there. But I mean, it's not often, and I wouldn't call that any type of civic engagement. I call that, hey, how can I help? So if somebody has something going on, if there's a young man looking for an internship, if somebody in my network is looking for employment or looking for somebody, how can I share? Right? Just wrapped up with, oh man, Gary's gonna kill me if I mention this. So we just wrapped up with a camp 2 weeks ago, the John R. Lewis Legacy Institute. My good friend, my brother Gary Lowe, he's one of their board members, and he, along with his cousins, they've been running this foundation to further, right, push the vision of the late and great John Lewis. And this is in the second year, they put together a camp for young men, high school age, so 13, 14 up to 18. And so, perfect example, we start by, when it first comes out, we push it through LinkedIn, push it through Facebook, have conversations. but I also volunteer by going out to Emory University, where the camp is being housed, and spend the night at the dorms, and just, not only am I a chaperone, but then I also get to, just kick it, have conversations with the young men. I'm there for that. We're also there for the networking hour, the networking social after, where they brought professionals in and had opportunity to just kind of shed light on various businesses and industries, to those young men. So even if I wasn't in the room and wasn't a part of Camp Promise, I would still have an opportunity to push that out there to the world through my platform. So yeah, I try to do what I can, and I'm sure he'll say, like, I'm very forgetful. See, I almost forgot to mention the JRL Legacy Institute. When I can do something, I will. But my wife and I, we're entrepreneurs, we're parents. We focus a lot on what we're doing, and so most of the time, that takes most of the time.
Well, that's fair. That you guys do what you can when you can. But at least you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Because you're not just saying it; you're doing it with action. We got a lot of folks that just like to speak. Well, we don't want to hear all that. We want to see that action.
Absolutely.
Because that action makes a difference. Can you share an example of a project where the community's voice shaped the outcome?
I would say, so years ago, a good friend of the family, a woman that I would say is my aunt, essentially. So my auntie. So she ran an organization where it was 40 girls and some shoes, the name of the organization. And literally, right, her goal was to collect shoes for those that have been unhoused, men, women, and kids, because oftentimes the footwear aspect isn't considered, right? But it's a major component of them getting up, moving forward, moving on, And she would put together a multitude of drives, a multitude of activities. But one thing that we dove into that kind of blew up, not only just came to fruition, but blew up and kind of pulled a lot of pieces together. So there was one of her, probably her second drive, major shoe drive. And, we're going out to friends, family, organizations, etc., collecting shoes. She had storage units full of these shoes for men, women, and children. Now, the reason why I'm focusing on the men, women, and children, because oftentimes when it comes to the unhoused, women and children are set aside, men are set aside. So what this did was, when it came time to take all the shoes that had been gathered from, just all of the door knocking and calls and requests to gather these, and just, I don't know, it was, again, storage units full of shoes. And we did it at, the park will come back to me that we did it. It'll come back to me. And so I laid it out. And so what happened was, now as she put together, right, the shoe give back, it brought together organizations that were providing food, that were also that put information in front of these folks, that were providing housing for families that were unhoused, that didn't have to separate, right, the families. Because again, oftentimes mother and children would go one way and then the men would go another way. So it brought together through one specific purpose. It ended up fulfilling a multitude of gaps in the realm of the unhoused, where food was provided, housing was provided, resources not Medicare, medicines were provided, screenings were provided. I mentioned food already, grooming, so haircuts or hair grooming. And so it turned into a much larger community event that was significantly more impactful than just us giving back shoes. So that was really amazing to see.
So, what does Black excellence mean in your community work?
In my community work, me specifically, or
In your community work, what does Black excellence mean to you?
whew, empowerment. And so for me, success is a word that comes to mind, but it's a multifaceted definition. Because success can be identified or defined in so many different ways. But for me, if there is success from the completion of a particular pursuit, if there is health, wellness, right, and mental dexterity, if there is the passing on of values, of education, and of culture, then that is success for me when it comes to, I guess, my engagement in community.
Well, I'm gonna give you and your wife your flowers now. I say the Black excellence is the work that the two of you have done on a continuous basis, because when you pour into the community, I mean, it does have an impact, and I think you guys are making that impact, and I'm very, very proud to know that that you guys are doing that, especially here in the Metro Atlanta area, because there's just we can do a whole lot more. But I mean, I'll just say, I have to give you guys some flowers for that, because you guys are truly representing that excellence.
Charles, I sincerely appreciate that, my brother, and kudos to what you're doing, man, and bringing all these stories to light.
So this, when we talked, I was asking you in Black history,
Hmm?
who is the most influential person in your life, in your career? You said it was your father, Mr. Chuck Kinnebrew.
Yes.
So your father, Chuck Kinnebrew, has been called a trailblazer. How has his story shaped yours?
So here's what's interesting. So for me and my brothers, I'm the middle, and older, younger, and obviously, so one of three. My father has always been a trailblazer of sorts to us, a beacon of success for us. Somebody to emulate when it came to actions of interpersonal relationships, of business, and just overall conducting oneself as a Black man in this nation. And that was at a young age, right? So even before understanding what he truly did. And what I mean by that is, so it wasn't until we were maybe in college, maybe after, that we understood the impact of my father's activity. And by that, I mean, he's a trailblazer in being one of the first Black athletes at UGA, specifically the university football team, to break the color barrier. So he was one of five student athletes to play under Vince Dooley back in the early 70s, so 71 to 74, that endured who knows what, right, to get out there and play, between the hedges, University of Georgia football. And, my father, nothing ever gets to him, it only empowers him, right? So we wouldn't hear just crazy stories of how bad it was unless we really poked and prodded. But we would just understand how he grew, right, in terms of the emotional intelligence, in terms of his strength and willpower through those experiences to be the man that we saw and grew up with. And that impact has led him to start a foundation where now they turn back and pull student athletes so that they aren't lost in the barrage of lights, camera action, social media, fame, and glory, without truly taking from the university what's needed, and that is an education, a sense of self, being of powerful, of empowerment, and worthiness.
Wow. So, what lessons from your father's life most influence your day-to-day choices?
Mm. I have learned that it is better to you should always seek to understand versus be understood, right? And that goes a long way. So, in a world in which, as an educated, self-empowered Black man, we oftentimes, want to or even need to emphasize our voice, our power, our presence, right? But a lot of times you gain so much more, right, by remaining, right, poised and calm and understanding, whether it be words, conversation, scenario, to then move accordingly. And you can take that simple statement and apply it to so many situations or so many scenarios, and you will immediately reap the benefits of, okay, well, I see how that worked out. Let me take that on there for you. But aside from that, it's always been 110%, right? I said that earlier, and being younger, we'd say, Dad, there's no such thing as 110%. And obviously, he's saying you bust your ass, right? I tell my son, anything you're going to do, if you are not giving it your all, there's no point in doing it at all. There's no point in engaging in that activity, in that pursuit, if you're not going to give every ounce of your passion, of your strength, etc. And so from him, that's how I pursued my athletics. And even I didn't go as far as my dad, and pursuing education, pursuing business, pursuing fatherhood, being a husband, all these different facets of life, making sure you're giving it your all, right? And always, always, always fueling yourself through education, through meditation, through spirituality, through food, however you do it. I remember sitting in the bed and watching movies, and my dad is on not even a Palm Pilot, it's on on a spell check or something, or like a handheld digital encyclopedia, and he's building up words because he wanted to sound better than the folks in his office. And this was like early in his career. I was probably like 8 or 9, right? And I remember my dad reading, because it could not only enhance the vocabulary, vernacular, verbiage, but maybe just provide more insight into something. And so all of that stuck with me, and I'm like, okay, this is what he's doing. This is what that looks like. He's always tried to showcase what good looks like in many different forms. And so, I speak for my brothers as well. We try to, or have tried to, emulate that as well.
So, how did conversations with your father deepen your connection to Black history?
I think just the sheer conversations themselves. And what I mean by that is understanding the closeness. And by that, I mean understanding what he went through, right? Understanding what, my grandmother, grandfather went through. And now, granted, my father's from Rome, Georgia. Okay,
Oh,
there's literally a train track where if you go on the other side of the tracks, we knew, right? Like, and so we would come down. A group in Connecticut would come down to the South and visit my grandparents in Rome, Georgia. There was a white and black church. So there was true segregation in the early '90s. But as my father would explain life, and again, when he went through, my grandparents went through, what others have gone through, just those conversations alone, help shape the importance of being strong as an individual, being strong as a black man, being strong as a father, being strong as a husband, and how I need to show up in this world, how I need to move in any and all situations, and then in turn, how I need to empower my black son to do the same. So those conversations were important because there may not have been many of them, but the ones that were had were always impactful because of what they were. And so they'll always stay with me in understanding who we are, where we came from, and what we need to do moving forward.
so what do you hope to pass on from your father's legacy to the next generation?
The pursuit of going out there and getting it. All right. My father has done a great deal, in this world, and he's not done, from all-star athlete to high-powered executive, to amazing father, to board members and extenuating athletes and investor and all these different things, a mentor. He's shown us a way that I would deem acceptable for the type of man we should be in this world. And I'm referring to me and my brothers, and now we pass down to our kids. And that is extremely important so that we are not just adding, right? We're definitely not detracting from society or adding society. We're building upon society.
I will say this. Before I do this final question, I want to say this. I know that your father had to have been a grinder. He had to get in the grind if he went to UGA, especially when time you're talking about in the 70s.
Yep.
Because I was born and raised in Alabama, and I know that same culture. I know that culture. So about the time you're talking about, he played for Vince Dooley and at UGA. I was about 8 or 9 years old then.
Okay.
I know what that was about.
Yeah. Yep.
So, if he survived that, that's a strong man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm sure he only told us, a fraction of the story. I can only imagine how wild it was.
So, the final question here: how do you honor his influence in your professional journey?
I would say I don't just show up.
Okay.
I show out in the right way. So when it comes to me as a professional, there's an aura of, or I exude compassion about the craft and what I'm engaging with. I exude compassion about the individuals I get to connect and work with. And I exude the power to get out there and every day get it done. So I can in turn go back home and rest as a fulfilled professional so that I can be a great husband and father.
Mm. So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave for our audience, as well as how to connect with you via your social medias, your website, whatever you'd like for them to know?
So I'll give words of wisdom thing as an entrepreneur or investor. What I can say one that could be combined for both. If there's an idea, right? If there's a willing to do something, start a business, invest in real estate. The first step is taking a step. It can be very intimidating, very daunting, but if you do your research, if you connect with professionals or people that have done it before, if you take your time, you realize that it may not be as intimidating. It could be daunting, but worthwhile. So go about doing these things in the right way, but do it. Do it. Don't just jump out there without doing your homework. Again, we're taking calculated risk. Calculated risk. So do your homework. Go for it, because the last thing you would ever want to do is have the regret of not taking the chance. I tell people all the time, if I make a stupid move, if I make a stupid acquisition, a stupid decision, what have you, a stupid investment, at least I've learned something. Now, if I do it again, that's on me, right? Then I'm just foolish. But if there was an approach where I thought something could work out, and I took it and it didn't work, at least I tried it. And now I've learned something. So I don't do it again this way. I can impart that knowledge upon somebody else so they don't do it. So that would be the biggest thing, is just go out there and try it and build up resources.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That could be people or things. People are always going to be your greatest resource, because that knowledge base is incalculable. The more people you know that know more people that know more people, it makes you extremely powerful and intelligent by knowing others who know things. So utilize your resources, build them up. Don't be afraid to partner with us. Work with us so we can build each other up, right? And build communities and continue to empower. So those would probably be the two most important lessons that I would like to say. Just when it comes to business, community engagement, or real estate. And then of course, if you can, give back. If there's a time, a talent, or a treasure, find a way to give back, because you never know who you may impact. So those are three. And then I can be found. So our company, Bespokature. So all social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, at Bespokature, BESPOKUTURE. The website, bespokature.com. And then I'm creating a new real estate page. It's going to be the Debonair Realtor, where I combine a bit of real estate, fashion, family. And so my wife and I get to play around with that as well. So that'll be coming up next. But feel free to reach out to me. Whether you can email me, brew@bespokature.com. If there's any questions, give me a phone call. Give me a shout. Shoot me a text. I love to talk to people. 404-822-3188. Just don't try to sell me anything. That could be another conversation. But let's have a conversation.
Yes, sir. Hey, before I do closing remarks, I want to just ask you this. I would love to have you back to do a December special where we do a feature on Bespokature. Nice. And you show us some of your fashions, and we just talk about a little bit more about what you're doing on the entrepreneur side as a follow-up, if you're open to that.
Always. I'd be more than happy to.
And I'd like to thank each of you for all the people that are watching the show this evening. As you listen to Omar give you guys an enormous amount of information that is about entrepreneurship as well as community engagement. The importance of those things is that if you're looking to continue to build where you are or to make where you live that much better, some of the ideas that he has given you guys is, hey, this is where I live, this is where I want to stay. Then there are things that you need to make sure that you want to do or should do in order to make that happen. We know that there are things that are happening around this country when it comes to different urban communities, to where they're just finding ways and ways and ways of sucking up communities and taking advantage of them. We've got to do our due diligence, that's all of us, in order to prevent these kind of things from happening. Because our communities are the places where we live, but if we want to make sure that these are the places that we call our communities, we've got to be about that. So that means it's time to do some action. So what we need to be learning right about now, that's each and every last one of us. Or what are some new ways? What are some new strategies in order to make things happen that's on that positive side? Let's put aside all of that negativity and let's make it all positive and straight to the point. Let's make it black and white. And as we make it black and white, that means that it is just what it is. So let's all do our part and let's build our communities and let's make our lives that much better. I want to thank you again, Omar, for being here. I definitely appreciate you and looking forward to you coming back. I want to thank each and every individual that has been watching the show this evening, especially via the YouTube channel. For those of you that have not yet subscribed and got all the notifications to the channel, please do so, because as the show goes live, you're able to catch the show live as well as going back and watching each and every episode that has been done. As we come up on the end of August, we've got a milestone coming up, and we'll wait to that day on that show, and we will break that. Also, I would appreciate it for those of you that have been following on the social medias to please go to our community, join the community. You can watch the show inside the community. We're going to be creating networking events inside the community. We're going to be posting blog posts. We're doing that already in the community. You guys can network with each other individually. That's business to business or person to person to learn what you need to learn inside the community. Again, we mean community. So please take advantage of that, because there are things that I'm sure that, and people that each and every individual can get to know somebody new, somebody that can add some value to your life as well as theirs to you. You all have a great weekend. Please enjoy. And we will see you next week on America in Black and White, where we are continuing to color conversations on America's canvas. Have a good weekend.